everybody, it's me, Miss Gruwell, and today I'm going over your classwork for April the 15th or 415. For today's classwork, you are doing a second reading of pages 3 through 13 of Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, and you guys are going to be looking at different appeals that Coates makes. So again, appeals are appeals to logos, which is logic, ethos, which is to the credibility of the author, and pathos, which is emotion. These are appeals that you make to the audience to help persuade them to your side. So Coates' overall argument, again, just to remind you all, is that race is a social construct that's harmful to many members of society. And so he's trying to make this argument throughout the book, and he's doing it by making these various appeals to his audience. So the first group of appeals we're going to look at are appeals to ethos or to the credibility of the author. To do that, we're going to need to look at pages 5 and 6 if we're using our PDF or the book, or paragraphs 1 and 2 if we're using the Google Doc that's attached to this assignment. So in these first two paragraphs, I see Coates is talking about how he had been interviewed on a TV show. And generally speaking, if you're interviewed on a news show, not just a TV show, but a news show, you are some sort of an authority on the subject. So I look over at my handout for today, and I'm looking at the table. We're under the bold heading Appeals to Ethos or Author. And I'm looking at the explanation that's already been provided. The explanation says, Coates explains that he has been interviewed, which suggests that he is an expert on the subject he spoke about and now writes about. This strengthens his argument by making him seem trustworthy, thus making his argument more likely to be persuasive. So I need to find some evidence that shows that that is happening. Now, I already said that that is what's happening, right? I said he talks about how he's been interviewed, and he seems to be this authority on the subject. The reason why this is an appeal to the author is because it is immediately starting off his book by showing him to be a credible source. So we need to find evidence that suggests this. So I would recommend going with the very last sentence of paragraph 1. In that sentence, Coates says, "When the host asked me about my body, her face faded from the screen and was replaced by a scroll of words written by me earlier that week." That, to me, is the best quote for this because it shows that he is some sort of an expert on the subject. So, the next example for appeals to ethos or the author that I've helped you all with is for page 11 and 12 or paragraph 11. Here, the explanation is that Coates is passing on wisdom from his parents to his son, and so in doing this, he's also passing on this knowledge to the audience, which makes him seem more trustworthy, and it also makes him seem friendlier to the audience. When he does this, when he passes on this little bit of wisdom from his parents to his son, it also declares him to be an expert on the subject because he explains that this is advice that has worked for him. So on page 11, or in paragraph 11, towards the bottom of the paragraph, you could go with, "What I told you is what your grandparents tried to tell me, that this is your country, that this is your world, that this is your body, and you must find some way to live with all of it." That quote there is where he's actually passing on the wisdom. You could also go with when he says, a little bit before that, he had talked about how he wouldn't comfort his son because he didn't believe it would be okay. You could go with that evidence. You could also go with what's on page 12, and that the question ultimately answers itself because that's showing us how it has worked for him, or that it is in a way working for him. If he's not going to offer comfort for his son, it's because he knows that his son needs to live through this experience in a way to help find answers for the future and to be able to help his generation take the next step further. So I'm done going over the examples for ethos. You guys will notice that you have to do page 9 or paragraph 8 on your own. I'm not going to offer you any words of advice or wisdom with that one because I've shown you how to do page 5 and 6 and also page 11 and 12. So for Ethos, I think you guys will be okay. In the next video, I'll go over logos, so tune back in if you want help with that one. All right, toodles.